Hello and welcome back to STAR Decoding. It is Jennie Friedman and Kay Lockhart here, come to you with a really fun episode where we take someone that I think you're really going to dig, looking into his charts, and we're just going to decode what we see, right? Right, Kay? I mean, go for it. I'd love for you to introduce yourself.
Sure.
Tell them who we are.
Let's tell you who we are. Let me introduce darling Jenny first. So she was an online digital friend and collaborator at first, and then I got to meet her in the flesh in Long Island. She is a human design consultant and has gotten my business expanded as well as solid for the past 6 months. So not only did she speak human design, but she's one of the best listeners of my astrology expertise. So I've kind of come out from the shadows and decided to re-embrace the beauty of this very empowering modality in metaphysics. And between the two of us, we decided, hey, why don't we walk through the 5 types of human design and their astrologies to decode people's success and self-mastery and trajectory so that maybe you can see a bit of yourself in all this.
Yes, absolutely. And I love what you do. So definitely, guys, go check out more in both of our channels and everything because we do help regular people. But we thought it'd be really fun to take celebrities and kind of because we all know some of these people. So go ahead, tell them who we're doing.
Okay, so wait for it because it's kind of what? It's Tony Robbins. We're going to take a look at Tony Robbins today. And hold your what for a bit because at the end of this, it's going to make perfect sense as to why we would consider him a star, why he's worth decoding, and if there's a method to his madness or some sort of formula in the way that he's embracing his original design. And perhaps you can see a piece of that blueprint for yourself and get out of being, fatigued or frozen or just plain old frazzled.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it. Okay, so why don't you start
Sure.
and let's do um let's do this sh screen sharing.
Okay.
So
So what
boom.
I'll do is I'm going to start with telling you an overview, and then we'll go to his chart so that you can stay with me, and then we'll move on to the technical visual part of this.
Okay.
Love about Tony Robbins is the first thing that makes him a little bit unusual. No, it's not the size. The first thing, that's the second thing. The first thing that makes him a little unusual is he is a leap year birth. His
Yeah.
birthday is February 29th. So since there's only that opportunity once every 4 years, he's already got a little bit of rarity. He doesn't have that many birth date twins. So let's begin. We're going to break it down. First are his big three in astrology, which means your sun, your moon, and your rising. Tony has a Pisces sun, he has an Aries moon, and he has a Libra rising. So let's start there. Let's go to what it looks like and then walk through what does that mean and how is that useful to anybody because we aren't born knowing astrology or our original design.
No, but I think it's also fun that you and I are both Pisces. So
We didn't plan that, that we're not creating a miniature fish cult here.
no, no.
All right, let's see. Last sharing is caring, and we're going to Tony's chart. And it's loading. There we go. There is Mr. Robbins' chart. So what we're looking at, and you can see the side panel here where everything is broken down. And like I said, we're just sticking with the first, his big three. So we'll start with the sun. We'll start with Pisces. We know from our last episode, which is worth reiterating in this one, everybody thinks that, oh, you're a Pisces. No, that is your methodology and your pathway for the arc of your life. And since Jenny and I are both Pisces, we can say we are not a Pisces personality, we are a Pisces playbook. So that means we're going to use imagination, intuition, spirituality, and creativity. So that is the road he is going to build and walk on brick by brick. It is his yellow to Oz. That is what you do with your sun sign. Now, people always say, well, but how is it you act so much like one? Because you've probably been coded that you should act like one, and you've taken these traits and personified them. The second thing is most of us are born with elements in the same sign as your sun sign. If you look down here at Mercury, his planet of listening, languaging, and learning, hey, it's also in Pisces. And if we go a little further down, we'll talk about it because it's not part of the key. He's got another thing in Pisces, so he's got a chunk which plays into his way of life.
Mm,
The
I
second thing
see
we've got
that.
here, yeah, second thing we've got here is his moon sign in Aries. What does the moon rule? It is your emotional compass. The moon is also where you feel at home with the way the world goes through that filter. And we'll talk about the difference between how you try and make a home out of something and how you try to anchor yourself as a home point. So with I'm sorry, with Aries as his moon sign, he's going to have the first fire element of the zodiac. He's going to have some impulsivity. He's going to have some leadership. He's going to have some courage. He's going to be very, very passionate, willful, and he's going to have big, quick emotions, which, of course, there's a plus and minus to every single element that we personify. So where's Tony going to feel most at home? When his emotional filter has those key characteristics. And he will use it. He'll have to refine that. We all have to refine our moon sign because this is where it starts to become personal. Whereas the sun sign, I don't have to refine creativity. I don't have to refine imagination. They're that's the knife, fork, and spoon laid out at my dinner place. I don't have to try and bend them and manipulate them. Now, as far as my feelings and my emotions and my comforts and my cravings and my, whatever you want to call it, subjectivity zone, that could use some finessing, just like the rest of us.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Beautiful.
Thank you. Now, we will get into placement later, but let's go right over here to his ascendant. He's got his Libra ascendant. The ascendant is basically the main character you're playing. It is a self that you give your soul, and that's how you're going to be seen as a true persona in the world. The Libra is going to give him an element, a like recipe of charm, talent for relating. He's going to be a peaceful person and he's going to be a strong negotiator because Libra loves balance. It loves to beautify. It loves being diplomatic. It loves avoiding conflict, which is very interesting. And we'll come into that later as he starts to crack open some of those shells and begins decoding himself in his life.
It's
So
so,
those are the big three that we've got.
it's so
Let's move
cool.
into, I agree.
Well,
And those are the big
well,
three. Let's
before
move
you
into his houses.
wait, before you go into it, do you want to see what he is human design wise? Just his big like overarching thing?
Yes, I do, but can I anchor a couple houses we should look at in
Yes,
this formative?
absolutely. Yes, yes.
Okay. So to wrap up, Act One of the Tony Robbins arc is he's got some important houses that you got to look at. The bottom half of the chart is very inner world, and the majority of his planets are here. That doesn't mean it's weighted in his favor. Those planets aren't like dollars. There isn't $6 below and only two above. It's not that formulaic. What matters is that he's got some stuff going on here in the fourth house, which is the house of home and the roof you live under. He's got the planet of Saturn, which can create a childhood that was cold, that had delays or denies. His parents divorced. He was with a single mom. She went through a couple other relationships. A stepdad finally adopted him and gave him his new last name. His original last name is not Robbins. He is a Croatian. It is like
Yeah.
Maharovic. I'm
Yeah.
really bad. Oh, there we go. They've broken it down to English pronunciation. It's Maharovic, but I think his original spelling has a JC in there somewhere, so I wouldn't know because I don't speak Slavic languages.
Right.
Now, here's the fun part about once we move away from that Saturn, he's got his Venus and his Mars. And we'll come back to that later. So there's the trailer to the movie. There's the little teaser.
Oh. Mm.
Move over to the fifth house. And we've got a guy who's got his Chiron, his sacred wound, in a house of creativity, play, and romance. And if you like being a detective like Jenny and I do, hmm, what could that possibly influence growing up? And he's also got his sun there. The sun is where you shine. So he's going to shine as self-expressed, except he's got to get through his sacred wound and convert that. So you can probably surmise that Tony had a hard time until he left home. In fact, so hard that he left home at 17 and became a dishwasher. That was his big get me out of here move.
Yeah.
So a wound of belonging, he's got a hard time connecting to self until he starts to do the work. And last, this is a big one here. We've got his self node, which is past life talents. And of course, sometimes we like to fall back on what we've already learned versus keep going into the uncertain on the exact degree of Mercury. And the sixth house is the house of service. And that comes into the stack of how you're going to eventually build career. So I'm going to leave that. That is Act One.
Mm.
Stop sharing. And Jenny, please show
That's
us.
amazing.
It's an interesting setup. If this is Act
It
One, where
is.
you learn the characters and a little bit of the story, it's
Yeah.
like,
No, that's
where,
very cool.
yeah, I'll stick around. I'll stay past intermission. What's your play about?
So, well, this is his human design. And so when we're looking at this, right, the thing that the first thing to note, right, is that he's a 6-2 manifesting generator. So when we see that, like last week we did Jim Carrey and he was a generator. So there's 5 types in human design. The second type we're looking at is a manifesting generator. And these people are kind of a subset of generators. They The big difference is that they're more like the time benders. There's an element of timing that's a huge part of their story. And I've heard before, like, we are divine timing. Like, when we decide to do something, that's the divine timing. And it's not actually out here directing us. It's like we're reflecting the direction, like it's a co-creation. Anyway, I think it's cool that he actually, his son, right, is the same as mine. I was like, oh, I
Ooh,
have a 37 as my son, and he has a 37 as his son. So it's the gate of friendship, but it's also about boundaries. And so, in the very contracted state, it's about weakness. And as you expand into the energy, it's about equality. And then ultimately, at its big, fullest expression, it's tenderness. And for a man who's 6'7",
yeah.
he is a very tender-hearted person. And he is compassionate healers and mystic mergers. And I was like, like me. Like I thought that was very exciting to hear. So but you could see that healthy communication and maintaining strong boundaries is something that he had to work at doing, work at like he wasn't that when he was young, in the sense of like what the great challenge was, and that's a whole nother conversation, but basically to get into the skills that he learned to develop into shining as this is amazing. And then I also think I always like to look at like who these people attract. Um,
Hmm.
because I call it your sticky gum on your shoe audience, but like he attracts people who want to rebirth. He attracts people who want to transform. He actually
Yes.
attracts people who already feel like they're revolutionary. They're some of them are justice warriors, but not all, right? Some people that just want to basically they're either totally inert, doing that like same thing, never change, and they want to get out of that, or they're just so emotionally overreactive and they want to calm their ass down and kind of like get some structure. And he's really, really designed for that. And I think you saw that in your looking at the fourth house and it's Capricorn and Saturn. I saw those are like two structured things. So I think, that it is, when you think of Pisces and Saturn, I'm not sure what the astrologer like. What's the because I know Saturn isn't the Jupiter's the Time Lord of or whatever of Pisces, but Saturn's like a big thing with Pisces, isn't it?
It helps, it's a friend to Pisces when you can get out of the shadow of it, when you can get out of the, oh, this is cold, or oh, this feels a little punishing. The brake on your car is not punishing. It simply stop gates a lot of chaos. It is order at its
Right.
finest.
Well, his authority is emotional. So, when I was listening to you talk about the Libra thing, I'm like, it makes so much sense because right here he's got that area defined, and so he's one who looks at life through the filter of emotion. So it's easy for him, probably when he was younger, before doing all the self-development work, to be highly emotional and maybe impulsive, like you said, like or just really highly reactive. But I would say like that's who he attracts, that same like so it's because it's in you, it's in the people that you attract. Like we don't really attract people who aren't like us, and that's when people are like they're nothing like me. I'm like, no, they're like you somewhere.
And, that whole idea of opposites attract. No, no, different expressions of the same usually attract.
Yeah, yeah. And then also he's the left angle cross of migration, which I don't want to go into there's so many different crosses in human design, but I do think it's important to realize he's a left angle. This is a transpersonal life he's living. He came
Mm.
here to change, to help people change and transform. He's here. I always say this is taking one for the team, which I don't know how true that is, but everyone I meet who's a left angle cross they tend to have a lot of projection put on them. And I know if you've got a 2 or 5 in your, design, that you're in the projection field. So he is as a 6-2 in that projection field. And so, you may not always know what he's up to because he seems to be doing all different kinds of things. And that's because and stop sharing, but like that's because a 6 in human design has 3 distinct life like cycles, right? The first is 0 to 30, where you're just experimenting, you're throwing everything against the wall, see what sticks, you have no clue what you want to do. And I'm sure that was his case because he did all kinds of different things. I remember, I think I first found him when maybe he was in his like mid 30s and he was being like a coach and he was writing a book motivational speaking he was learning and then
Yeah.
he was kind of like around that time because between 30 and 50 you start to say, oh, you know what, I'm actually really drawn to this. And so he started to see I'm really drawn to helping people feel empowered. And that is what the 37 is a son. We're people that are big on empowerment. We want everyone to feel empowered. So he really does that, really in
Yeah.
space. But it was probably from 35 to 50, he started to really hone in. And by 50 until whenever, that's when you're in the I Ching, they call it like the house analogy, where he's at the roof of the house and you come. So around 50, he's looking around, he's taking inventory and saying, I see this is how I can do this. So it's probably when, and I don't know when he started doing the fire walks and all those things, but I bet it was later in life. Like
Oh
when you
yeah.
see 6s, those are late bloomers. And because it's a very on purpose. Like you're supposed to experiment with all kinds of things and fail at a lot of things so that you can tell people about the experience. I did this and this worked and this didn't work and blah blah. So you're kind of like a 3 until you hit 50, then you turn into a 6. And he's a 6 too. So it means he's always seen himself as a leader, like on some level. He probably knew he was meant for great things, even if he didn't know what that was. And I've listened to his stories about helping people. He's very philanthropic. So, like helping people who were starving, he does a huge hunger campaign thing. So, but so when you're looking at him, he has the 2. And that 2 in the second position there is how other people see him. So people don't really see, he's the hermit. So people don't really see him Like they think they know who he is and what he does, but depending on what you saw, he might actually be known to someone else for a whole different reason. And I always find 6'2" fascinating. So yeah, I'm jazzed to talk
He's
about him.
that, if nothing else. And that's really interesting because, as somebody who took a while to, as a manifesting generator, somebody who said, okay, I can do anything I want and stopped. It's almost like going to a buffet. I tried a little of everything, but then I went back for what I really liked. And
Yes.
I think that maybe Tony did the same thing. He tried a little like, woo, let's go everywhere. And then at one point said, so what do I want to double down on? And
Yeah.
between 0 and 30, he was busy living a life of, like I did, not that reaction. He left home at 17. He washed dishes. He became a janitor. At one point, what started this all off is he has no higher education. This is a guy who didn't like, okay, I'm going to run away from home, but then go to college. No,
No.
no. What he did is he turned to his landlord and said, how did you get to be so successful? And the guy said, I am really into personal transformation and self-development. And there's this guy. And so Tony said, I got to hitch my wagon to that star over there. And at some point began producing those events. So I went through landmark education and then at some point started assisting the transformation of others. Then at one point worked for them producing the online education. So that's why Tony has so much interest for me is it's that simple. Nobody said easy, but it's that simple to say, how can I crumble this up and get a new fresh sheet of paper out and be this me? Or the Russian doll thing, the matryoshka is like, I want to pull this layer off. That one's been used up. How about this? Like a rocket ship, you know,
Yeah.
off this little section, keep going until you're just the essence in
Yeah.
space.
Well, that's why, like, if you see, like, I know him to be a motivational, like, speaker and an author. And I know him to be a really good, you said negotiator, but he, like, peace negotiations. I saw him do this, like, where not just with couples and therapy kind of thing, but where
Yep.
he was literally taking a Muslim and a Jewish guy and having a big, like, let's work this out. Like, I think he really has it in him to create world peace if he was given that position, because probably, and I always attributed it to like just really good emotional intelligence, which I think being an emotional authority, if you're going to play in the dance in the higher vibrations of that energy, you do have high emotional intelligence and you know when to pull the lever, push the lever, leave it alone, do all the things. And I think he's mastered that. There's mastery there for sure.
You have probably watched some of his signature clips where he has dissolved and disappeared 12 years of bitterness in a marriage in 8 minutes. It's even titled, if you all want to go to YouTube, Tony Robbins fixes a marriage in 8 minutes. No, he didn't fix. He sucked away all of their resentments so they could get back to seeing each other as they truly were. And that inspired one of my kids' books, Ito
And that's a
Swallows.
time bender, right? That's what I'm saying. It's like actually being able
Yep.
to
He'll
help
give you
other
back the
people
years
jump
of
the
history.
timeline.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's incredible, and it inspired one of my kids' books, Ito Swallows the World, where this, scavenger bird who can eat anything, and everyone's like, boo, you suck. And then he starts eating all the garbage in the world, and the world's getting better, and they're like, yay, you're awesome. And one day he just swallows the whole world once he's cleaned it up, and everyone looks at each other in peace instead of with their
Oh,
garbage that,
wow.
yeah,
Well, I know
totally.
he does his new wife, which isn't a new wife anymore. I'm sure they've been married for a bunch of years by now. But I remember when he got divorced, it was like, whoa, wait, what? How could this role model guy is now going through a divorce? And I don't know if it was he cheated on her or what. I don't know. I don't remember.
You know what? We'll get to that. It's actually in his chart,
Oh,
and
okay.
it's
Well, then
not.
I'm going to be quiet. Tell us what happened.
It's
Tell us what
not.
happens.
Yes.
I was
What
just going
happens
to make the point
next?
that he does do something now with his wife where they're like helping people with, and
Yeah.
it seems like a sex therapy way or. something.
Couples, yeah, they do
Yeah,
couples work because Sage can do that,
that's
whereas the
sage.
wife
Yeah.
before wasn't. And if you look at the first third of his life, the whole idea of ran away from home, left home. We don't know if it was a runaway. He called it chaos. And also, if you don't know how he got to be 6'7", is he grew 10 inches in 1 year due to a pituitary
I
tumor.
read that and I was like, oh my gosh, 10 inches. That's you've got to feel like a freak on some level. Like, what?
If we look at the sixth house, which we will, we'll see that the sixth house is your lifestyle, your daily routine, your service, but it's also how you can get sick. It's one of the places you look as an astrologer. And for something to have that much anomaly energy to it, it's right there. It's
Oh,
right there in the chart.
show us. Okay, I'll be
Right. So let's move on to his second act. But I will say 0 to 30, 30 included him becoming a father. So he had to
mm,
go and reframe, okay, here I was as a kid without a dad. Now I'm a dad with a kid. How do you go through that weird rebirth of self?
yeah.
You just carry on like my parents did, is whatever they were handed, they insisted on handing it down instead of reinventing it. So there's a reason why wife number one was A to B, wife number two was B to C's. If you're a transformer and somebody else isn't, how do you keep that from going? If
Yeah.
I'm three Russian dolls deep into my center and you're still enjoying the largest one and don't know what else is in there, that can be its own what we call completion is all right, this is a loop that is not going to close, or this is a circular conversation, or the ships are just going to keep drifting, which
Yeah.
happened in my parents' marriage as my dad started succeeding and my mom wasn't interested in any personal success whatsoever. So it's not like she said, great, I'm going to keep containing your success, which is my version of expansion. As you go this way, I'll go this way. No, wanted to go backwards in time. And, hey, it's a lunar eclipse. We're all having to tell ourselves until you build a time machine and go back, but then you wouldn't be this version of you. And maybe that version isn't as good. So maybe we should let go of the fantasy of can we rewind the clock?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the stagnation. You take someone like Tony, I mean, he seems to have such joy, spark, adventure in him. Like I guess he just was like, I can't stay stagnant. Like I can't stay in this.
No, let's find out where and why. All
Okay.
right, Tony, let's go to your second act, bud. And we're back. Okay, so what I have as far as notes on Tony for the second act, let's go a little deeper into a few things here. So the sign on his sixth house right here is Pisces. So that's going to deal with something that could be a little supernatural. Who has a pituitary tumor and the way it manifests is exaggerating his endocrine system, all of his hormones, so that he overnight becomes a giant.
Mm,
It's an interesting metaphor. Overnight, you became a giant. Are
yeah.
we talking literal? Or are we talking, figurative?
Yeah, right.
So that I find fascinating.
Well, I also find it fascinating that I look at this and see a crown like a king.
I like that too.
Just saying.
There's a
First
lot,
thing I saw when I looked at it, I went, oh, wow.
yeah, there's a lot going on, and he's done a very good job as somebody who can be a time bender, who can do a little bit of everything in very not congruent ways. It's not like Jim Carrey who said, "Here's my vertical, and I'm
Right.
gonna nail this floor by floor." Tony is
Bing, 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 bing.
kind of like when you go to an estate sale, a little bit of this and that era and this, period and over here and beep, 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 beep. It's a very eclectic
Yes.
collection of abilities. If we look at where do we find what Tony is up to in his marriages, his moon is in the seventh house. So he's got the beauty of finding emotional home in relationship. And yet, that Aries moon, the high side of it is childlike. The shadow side of it is impatience or boredom or restlessness. So
Mm,
you gotta do a lot to hold this guy's attention. And when you're the obvious superstar, and he's not the only one who probably had a hard time finding lengthy marathon mates. He probably had a lot of sprints and then
yeah.
just did the Libra thing of diplomacy and said, you know, this was probably over a while ago, but let's wear out our welcome with each other. So I give him a hall pass on the divorces. Even if there was cheating involved, it was already over romantically and
Mm,
maybe even a little bit on paper. They could have been living separately. There's that possibility.
yeah.
It's not like, oh, you dog, oh, you narcissist, you were so intoxicated by your own largesse. No, he really anchors into a deep compassion as a Pisces for other people. The last thing he wants to do is harm anybody.
Yeah.
And yet he has this itch and yearning for expansion with all that passion
Yes.
and all that courage. If you're not a courageous, and this is where his current and hopefully final person comes into the mix, is Sage is no dummy. She's got her own little bravery subset of her persona too. So they're kind of a little Bonnie and Clyde as far as, hey, let's be daring with life. Hey, let's have an adventure, a misadventure, comme ci, comme ça, same coin, two sides. Whereas other people might be a little more perfectionistic and a little less permissive of, whoops, take two.
Yeah.
So I like their dynamic as true soul partnership, and other people can be your karmic. They help you get your kids here. They help you launch your career. They help you heal your childhood wounds. They help you with your Chiron. Every partner he's picked has probably had a bit of deliberation and discernment because of that Libra rising. This isn't a guy who's just, wee, let's get married.
Yeah.
Even his emotional impulse was that because his moon is in opposition with his ascendant. So there's already a how do I figure out the ratio between this one that gets the spotlight, but then this one wants attention too. And I have my moon in my seventh too. So you have to be X amount of time for self, X amount of time for others. And sometimes the flight is faster this way with a tailwind, and sometimes it's slower backwards. So it's not 50-50. This isn't mathy math and numbers games.
Right. Right. Yeah. That's I always make the distinction between balance and harmony.
Yeah.
I mean, you can harmonize, like that beats balance any day. You don't need to make it equal. You just need it to work.
And that's very Zen is to go, maybe there's a proportion or a ratio to this instead of a pound on this side and a pound on this side. Ease,
Yeah. Yeah.
meat, just like the butchers, not so much. Let's go back. Let's take a step back and go into his sixth house, aside from the health complex. Let's
Okay.
start to look at Tony is now starting to find his daily routine and his ability to serve and his health and wellness. The Pisces on the house is going to make this very anti-routine. It's going to be visionary and big picture. This is a guy who probably was going to go through a fair number of jobs looking for like Goldilocks, his version of perfect, which he probably figured out doesn't exist. You have to make it up because that's what
Yeah.
most these deal with. They're looking for something detailed, like spell it out for me. Let it be IKEA instructions for my furniture. No, go to the design studio. It's the opposite of that Virgo energy. But let's go deeper now that he's a full-grown adult out of the house and he's starting to get some traction, some notches on his belt in his work game, not his career yet.
Right.
Yes. So we look at the South Node conjunct, which means stacked within on the same degree or within a few, like a deck of cards. We look at this makes him a natural communicator because he probably had some past lives where he was very good at speaking.
Mm,
Been an orator, he might have been a translator. It's karmic. He's really got a great head on his shoulders and isn't going to get swept away. That's why I don't subscribe to the thought of, oh, Moon, Aries, seventh house, silly ho. No, I disagree. I
mhm.
think that this would override or eclipse that and give him a little bit of objectivity because he's in tune with collective tides. But he hasn't quite figured out career yet. So that's okay. We're in the second act. He went from home and the hand he was dealt. Now he's in his self zone, figuring
Yeah,
it out.
right.
What's interesting is this is where we're going to talk about stelliums. Stellium is fancy astrology word for planetary groupings, all in the same sign that end up working together like a chord on a
Mm,
piano instead of a
hmm.
single note. They're in different houses, but he's got his sun in Pisces. He's
Yeah.
got his Mercury in the same sign, so that's a nice little congruence. There's a coherence there. And his South Node, like I said, let's discuss.
So
There's going to be,
talkative.
yeah, yeah, because, yeah. I'm sorry. Yep. I was going to tell the joke, and here's the punchline. Yeah, guy knows how to get da 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 da. And without any sort of refinement, it's going to be very intuitive, very imaginative, very creative, and it could lead to a little emotional overwhelm for him because it just is so free association in that sign. It's like the guy who needs you to help him figure out how to say it because he's so busy talking and talking and talking that it's lacking a little bit of, and here's where you breathe, and here's where you paragraph, and here's where you put a period every now and then.
Yeah.
It's just, think of a waterfall.
Yeah. It's like channeling the information. It's just
It's
flooding
very,
in. Yep.
which is where if you take that and you give it a dash of that moon enthusiasm, this is probably a guy who got a little overwhelmed because he might have been claircognizant. He probably can really say, well, if the sixth house is my house of service and I've got my self node there, how do I know all this stuff? Because you've done it a few times before, buddy. I've got my self node in my third house. How can I sleep on top of a math book, wake up and get an A on the test? This is a rerun for me. Been there, done that. I could give a tour. Like I know how to know. I know how to learn,
I
especially
know
if
how
it's,
to know a bunch of things, but math ain't one of them.
it didn't work in physics, so at least I have an Achilles heel. But I always just the teacher would say we're going to do this like a recipe. First get a cup of flour, then sugar, then eggs, and I go, oh, we're making a cake, and they get all mad, and I'd say, I know where you're going. I see your plan.
Yeah.
But that's past life. That's not, I wasn't using any psychic abilities. I wasn't,
Yeah.
showing off mysticism. It's just
Like muscle memory. You just know what you're doing.
muscle memory. When I go to movies and I look at, well, they're setting this up, then they're going here, I can assume from patterns that I paid attention to that others don't.
That's all. That's a lot of what I do too, because I can just, and it's like that mentalist thing. So I'm
Yes.
sure he's a mentalist, sure of it. Yep.
Yep. And I will say that the claircognizance is the ability to be clear around already knowing. He's, we've talked about Jim being unofficially psychic in a very different way.
Yeah.
He had his moon in the eighth house. Tony's south node in the sixth is probably the key to him saying, how do I understand how to communicate so well? How is it that work? You don't have to train me to go do daily tasks and work. What
Right.
he does need training with, however, is how to know how to talk to others instead of just verbal dump because it's coming through so fast because it's so easy for him. And you've seen those people. Maybe you're one of them. When it's so natural to you, it lacks some sort of integrity or cohesion. I've got a friend who's a brilliant songwriter. He can bust him out every 30 minutes. Prolific doesn't necessarily mean excellent. There's a lot of going back to the drawing board, and that's a hard muscle for him, is he can he can write the way that Billy Goats can eat all day, but how do you discern? How do you make it potent so it's a banger song versus here's another, here's another. He's not just twirling pizzas all day. How do you turn it into something delicious,
Yeah.
which is fun and frustrating? Okay, so let's move on to his second stellium. We've talked about how he's got this going on,
Yep.
that this past life gives him a sense of self and pathway and playbook. And because he's shining as a Pisces in a complicated house of self-expression, sooner or later he's going to be able to express himself, just like Madonna.
Love it.
Yes. Next up, we've got a stellium going on right here, again, in two different houses in Aquarius.
Mm.
Mm, okay, what's that mean? Let's start with Aquarius, big picture, and then break it down into elements. Aquarius is the sign of humanitarianism and visionariness, and also rebellion, not in, hey, you're a jerk, you're always going against the system and fighting. It's more this is stale. How can I break through with forwardness? Sometimes you have to go against to go up. Sometimes it's the sign after Capricorn, which says, I'm going to take all this expansion from Sagittarius, and then I'm going to make it traditional so that you can repeat it. If you can't repeat it, how good is it? It's how useful is it? Imagine if the front door you had needed a different key every day to get in.
Yeah.
Sometimes repetition and structure and order is really beneficial, especially in time-saving ways.
And that's, yeah, exactly. And that's where his son, that boundaries master thing, like he's got the structure thing kind of down. Because he did the work. I mean, I don't think he was born that way. I think he did the work.
Yeah. He will say that the first 17 years of life, all he knew was chaos.
Yeah.
And we've seen people who only know lives of chaos. They end up in very low consciousness or low vibration ruts and sometimes results.
Yeah.
With that much chaos, usually, and we talk about it in Chicago, is you go from poverty to prison, and then you get out, and then you're back, and it's just here's your death march. He could have in one multiverse, Tony could have ended up a very, tragic story.
Yeah.
We'll get into why didn't he? Well, much like Jim Carrey, you have blessings in your chart to help you out, and if you activate them, they override your detriments. So,
Yes.
you can win battles by just strengthening your blessings. You don't always have to play the hero, and it's tough to be the hero. You have to be victorious every single time.
Oh,
The villain
yeah.
has to get it right once. He has to be like, hey, Superman, you're not so great. Huh, my turn. Once. So to speak to this Aquarius collection and stellium that he's got, there's a social paradox going on because it's such a collective sign, Aquarius, but because he's got his Venus
Yeah.
and Mars in this fourth house of home, there's a hard harmony that he had to deal with called how personal can I make it, yet how impersonal is this going to become for me to do my third act? So he probably had his chunk, his zone where it was, this is me and I'm individual and it's all good. It's not really fitting. I'm a black sheep. I'm kind of a misfit, but I crave this having this half of socialization
Well, that's,
versus paradox.
yeah, I can tell you also what I know about 6'2s
Mhm.
is they have fan club energy is what I call it. And they basically appeal to many people impersonally, and they can help them in this way. But it's in an impersonal way. Like someone could watch them on YouTube, and benefit from that. But they won't actually be working with them or him touching them in to him a personal way. And then converse like at the same time, he can really help personally like a few people who will pay that big money, and help them in a very personal, I'm your coach, call me anytime way. So we've
Yeah.
got both. A 6-2 has both.
Thank you. That sets up the point of, and Jenny and I talked about this. We've talked about it between you and me just being friends and collaborators, but we've also talked about it personally and professionally as your Venus is what you want to beautify. Now, he took it very literally. He wanted to beautify his sense of home, but then
Mm,
it became more conceptual as he's helping you beautify your sense of home called
yes.
yourself, your life.
Yes.
Mars is what you're willing to fight for. He's willing to fight for a sense of home. That's why he probably was a really good family man and dad in the chapters that he was. But the Aquarian energy says, you know what? You're missing where this could go, bud. And as much as you want, what you said is you need a fan club because you're built for one. So sooner or later, this is going to have to be a proximity thing. You
Yes.
be up close. It's going to have some distance, and that is the end of his second act. Is where he's starting to negotiate the eccentricity of I did it for me. I squeezed, all the juice out of it, and I'm starting to crown. I'm starting to transform into we energy. So I'll stop the share and let you continue.
Well, I love that. I mean, that's the thing that when I saw it, I go, "Oh, that's this that explains the 6-2 right there." I love it when I can see the human design in the astrology, and there is
Yeah.
astrology in human design. And I prefer, I mean, I really like to d dig into the gene keys more than anything else, but it all is layers and layers of the same. And if you look at the chart, like I'll share it again, you can see like, and this is everyone's chart, right? There's going to be energy centers, there's going to be astrological placements, there's going to be the gene keys, which are the gates in human design. So we're looking at a lot of, the human design's like a blend of all these different modalities, um, and the thing that I thought would be interesting also to talk about was, in his gift that he brings the world. So when we look at human design and we're talking about, okay, so where's your conscious Jupiter? And what's that about? And his is a 10. It's in the gate of behavior of the self. That's what they call it. But it's basically he's going from being like self-obsessed, like everything about me, like, and I was on my own since I was 17 too. I totally understand what that's like. You are self-obsessed because the whole world is all revolving around you when you're 17. And so going from that contracted state into just being natural, just like, okay, this is who I am and then really just being in your beingness. So it's all about radical self-love. He did it himself, and now he's helping other people have that radical self-love, personal empowerment, self-love, and being the example. Like as the sixth, like he is so that's known as the role model, but it's the role model. I always say six is different than a five. Like a five is a visionary leader, but a
Mhm.
six is the role model, and the way they lead isn't necessarily, yeah, they have a vision or whatever, but they come, I always say it's like Jesus energy, where they come down off the mountain amongst their people and they work with their people. And he's that kind of guy. He will come down off his high horse, like and be with you. He's not going to say, and everybody charge. Like he's not directing in that sense. He's more with. And so that's a 6-2 kind of thing. And then also, and I think you'll go into his North Node, but I wanted to say what I found out because it plays into like his biggest gift. I looked at his North Node, right? And I was like, okay, so the primary action of his North Node in human design language and Gene Key language is to enjoy the human body. I was like, he is the embodiment master. And
Uh,
that's embodying your principles, embodying your vision and all that, but he's also enjoying his body, like
yeah.
on a physical level, right? And he's at 29 degrees. So it's like it shows mastery in the time alchemist, way, being that time bender. And it says primarily about actions to stay true to natural rhythms, patterns, and behaviors that keep you healthy.
And we all won't be that surprised. I'll get into it for his third act, but Tony is extremely passionate about health and wellness.
Yes, and that makes so much sense with his son being in the sixth house.
Yeah. No, his son is in the fifth.
Oh, his
His
son's in the fifth house.
node, his
Oh,
comfort
okay.
is in the sixth. So
Oh, okay.
yes,
When
that's
you do
what.
Placidus, I can't read the Placidus chart well. I'm always like, but there it is. But it's not a
Oh,
perfect wedge like whole sign.
nope. It's because we don't go around the sun in a circle. We go around in an oval. So when you divide the pizza up in 12 sections, you're gonna have some wedges that are really wide and some wedges that are really skinny.
Yeah,
So whole sign is a good training. It helps you get your feet wet.
yeah.
But I'll tell you, man, if I did my chart, especially with a 29-degree rising and planets at 0 degrees, you go to whole sign, I don't know who that is. It's somebody else's life.
Okay. Well, so continue on with where you were going, because I don't know if I beat you to the punch with the North Node, but like
No, as a matter of fact, you did just a nice little
kind of worked. Yeah,
let's sprinkle a little in. So the third act of Tony's life is going to be what was the inevitable element in his chart to help him get from that me energy to the we energy while
yeah,
still being a person who has a sense of self. We've seen people who try and have that sub persona, that fragmentation where, for example, I don't want to mock anybody or make fun of, but let's pretend you did some weird eat, pray, love kind of adventure where you thought you were a Manhattan socialite who liked to, you know, ladies who lunch, and then all of a sudden you're doing meditation retreats in Bali. That's a loss of self. You haven't embodied it back. And you used a perfect term as Tony really can contain each phase. So we know it wasn't just this natural, hmm, okay, I've finished this chapter, like Jim Carrey.
yeah.
What's next? No, he's going to need a catalyst because he is a catalyst. He's not going to just, take a nice Sunday drive and then put the car in the garage and go read a paper and take a bath. He's going to need a pop. He's going to need a big bang because he is one. So let's find out what happened. And Tony. So here we are. The elements that we're going to look at for the third part of his arc and mastery of his game and his blueprint and crowning into purpose. We will look at the 10th house, which is the house of career, and it's the opposite of home. Home is internal. Now it's 10th house is what's my public reputation. It's external. We're going to look at his midhaven, which is the bridge where you start to exit your own personal glories and you start going, I bought a ticket on a plane. Where's this going? I'm going up, up, up. And we're going to look at the North Node, and that is where it's your fate to discover. It's the opposite of your South Node called, past lives. Now you're starting to create your future destiny. First up, we've got his 10th house in the sign of Cancer. 10th house is technically a Capricorn idea. It's the concept of, well, here's structure and here's order and here's you externally and out in the world.
Yeah.
And yet it's got a sign that is very introverted or going within.
And that's
How
that hermit in human design. That's what he is.
How
Yep.
do you weave those two together as a guy who's starting to get some momentum around that service? And now, because he's going in service, now he's resolved his wound of not belonging. He's finding his weirdo tribe in this personal transformation, which now is very normal.
Yeah.
Back,
When he was doing it, it was not normal.
no, it was for, it felt like, oh, you're hiring somebody to coach you how to run a marathon. Yeah, that's 1% of the people on the planet. Do you? Now everybody, life coach wasn't a word back then. Yeah,
No, and I remember people calling him New Age. They were like, he's New Age. And I was like,
not really. He's
he seems
taking
pretty down to
the
earth and practical to me. I don't know.
it's the limitation of language. It's when you don't have a good phrase for something, you can't really deliver a concept. You can't really language it. And whatever.
Yeah,
It doesn't mean he's not it. It just means you don't understand what it is. Is he personal development? Yes. Is he transformation coach? Yes. What does transformation mean when it's you? We know what
right.
transformation means when I take a raw egg and cook it, or water freezes into ice. That's a state change. How do you state change yourself? Aren't you your identity and your ego? That's where it gets a little metaphysical, and that's why people call him New Age, is
Yeah.
he's
And I
somebody.
and I always I've so admired him and learned a lot from watching him when he was young, when he was much younger. I was
Yeah,
much younger.
there we go. When we were busy
When I
getting
was much younger and he was much younger. Yeah.
well, now he gets to enjoy the harvest that he planted. And so what a 10th house public with a Cancer on it will look like. Cancer is very personal. Cancer is incredibly subjective to something very objective. He's going to become some type of teacher or caregiver or compassionate career and representative of our under nurtured sides.
Mm,
So, he went from his daily, here's me making oatmeal every day, that kind of repetition, that attention to detail, the mildly perfectionistic part of all of us, the taskmaster, and
yeah.
now he's starting to build a block with it. And because Cancer is ruled by the moon, and the
Right.
moon goes back to your emotions are subjective, it's going to have a lot of flux. It's going to have a lot of waves. It's going to take him a while to say, how do I give you a branded Tony so that you recognize me out in the world and publicly because it's packaged, it's gift wrapped in something so
Yeah, I
sensitive.
think he packaged himself in several different ways. I mean, that's obviously an option, and why not?
That's where I think his goodwill of feeding everybody, because he knew what it was like to not have food on major holidays. His big memory is, I hated Thanksgiving because everyone went home and had a family dinner. And so he became the guy who gifted Thanksgiving dinners to everybody in
Yep.
poverty or homelessness. He said, nope, it's too hard on a holiday. Doesn't that sound motherly? Doesn't that sound very Cancer energy?
Yes. Yes.
So this is what's giving his career slash reputation slash public Tony, not behind closed doors Tony, on the stage Tony, that that gift of let me let me wash you, let me bathe you, let me kind you, which
Yeah.
is why I like that his career, even though there are no planets in his 10th house, has that filter on it.
Hmm.
You give Tony public attention, he's going to run it through that Cancer, homey, nurtury.
How can we help more people, and how can this feed more people? Yep. Hmm.
Yeah. So we look at that element. Now we go to his midhaven, which is also in Cancer. And this is where you start to depersonalize your own work. I've got Pisces on my midhaven. I wanted to be an artist. I was a spiritual counselor. When I had to start bridging it, when I had to go to a bigger vision called, I'm supposed to help people awaken. Oh, well, wait, then people have to be a little more depersonalized. They can't run around and touch you and touch you and touch you and touch you. It can't be as one to one. I have to do what everyone does is you dial back your proximity.
Yeah.
Now time and touch becomes a little bit more distance.
And I think this is also why he did so many partnerships with people because I've seen him work very closely with three people I think of offhand. I can't remember that first. I'm so sorry, I can't remember her name, but he has a whole business going with this woman. Begins with an M, but I can't remember the name of it. And then he has like that whole Tony Graciosi
Yep,
franchise. He's got the whole with his wife, Sage, that whole franchise. Like he has a bunch of irons in the fire
we're
and
going to
helps
talk
other
about that.
people.
We're going to talk about that because
Okay.
because Tony's going to have flux and moods, he's going to need that catalyst. He's not it's not earthy, it's not structured where I just pour a little water on you and then you sprout very linearly. But his midhaven is going to start gravitating towards, if he's going to depersonalize, he's going to have to add in other elements of Cancer that aren't so animated, that aren't so, oh, a human being would have those. Now they're ingredients. Now it's how can nurture show up? How can security show up? How can empathy show up in this bridge from self to soul, prepping you for your fate? Because fate is in a completely different sign. It's gonna take da da da. We're going down here using his Jupiter in its own home sign of Sagittarius at 29 degrees.
Yeah.
Yep. So what is 29 degrees? We talked more about it in the Jim Carrey video. If you want to go and dive into it there, I'll give a short version of it. 29 degrees is the aneretic degree. This is where it is the rubber band at its most tense right before it's about to launch for the collective. Exactly. The 29-degree club, whichever planet is in it, doesn't always have to be your Jupiter or your sun or your rising or your moon or your da 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 da. People like Oprah,
Yeah.
Ernest Hemingway, Drew Barrymore, Gary Vaynerchuk, Gary V. Yours truly as a 29 is I'm here for the we. No man, he didn't stall the me show, but the thing that made it impossible to not we the rest of his life, that into your fate and your purpose and the legacy that you're leaving behind, and you stop being self and you start being soul as a window for everything, is this 29-degree Jupiter in Sagittarius. So what did he self-master? He self-mastered expansion
Yes.
for others.
Yes.
There's the ding, ding, ding of his chart, where it's just a matter, it's not a matter of time, it's a matter of completions before, kind of like when you're cleaning a window, is you can't see anything and now it's clean, now you see everything. In fact, it's no longer dirt, it's glass to look through. You're seeing nothing, you're seeing through.
That's
And
the
that's
beingness. Yeah. Yep.
and it's beautiful.
Oh, yeah.
So let's bring it home to his north node here. He's got it right across, and it's in opposition because this is how degrees work. You've got a 25 here in south node, you got a 25 here in north node. It's in Virgo, the sign opposite of Pisces. Now, his sun is not directly opposite. There's a totally different thing going on.
Ooh, I'm just realizing he must be going through this eclipse.
His eclipse is probably, bringing up some old bones, just like most Pisces are feeling right now. But this North Node, opposite his Mercury, helps him remember his past lives and have compassion for what to do with it. It's making him soulful. It puts him in the 12th house, which is kind of your dream state. It's your subconscious, and yet it's his fate. So he knows what his fate is supposed to look like. He's not sitting there scratching his head called, oh, there's something I'm trying to remember. Like when you wake up from a dream and it was so clear a second ago, but now it's just a blur, and now, the garbage
Yeah.
truck is distracting you. He locked it in, which is beautiful. He knew that he could just go into a dream state of sorts around his fate and remember exactly how to deliver this in a waking mode. He learned, this is very important, to use time, which is why it's so good that you reference the manifesting generator that way. And the best part, when you have your North Node in the 12th house, You're not afraid to suffer a little for your own transformation or a lot. It gives you, it's almost like being a redhead is, I've got a high pain threshold. He has a very high suffer threshold that makes it not as bad for him as it would be for other people. And
Right.
he can give you details on an ego death because that's the job of his North Node in the 12th house in the sign of Virgo. Ta-da.
Wow.
I know. What a guy, right?
Drop the mic. You're just so genius. I love this.
Thank you.
Amazing.
I really enjoy seeing the architecture of people's lives if they weren't so busy in their 3D-ness of like, oh, this happened to me. Oh, this is happening to me. What if it's not about that?
Yeah.
What if it's an amazing escape room with a reward built in?
You know me. I'm like, ooh, I love that
Better.
vision. Life
Yeah.
is an escape room. What's the reward you get when you figure out how to trip that last piece into place?
Yep.
Open the door, and then what do you got? I love
Hmm.
it. Oh, man, see how cool is this, right? So I hope you guys have enjoyed this. I so enjoyed putting it together, and obviously, we love talking to each other. So we'd love to hear what you guys think. Share in the comments below.
We do, and we have parting gifts. You know, it's not just Tony with his escape room prizes. It's us too. Jenny, can you give bites of wisdom and advice for people who are manifesting generators out there on what to do? And I'll give a little bit of, hey, if you
So I
were a
will, yes, I will tell you that if you're a manifesting generator, understand that when people tell you, oh my God, if you would just stick to one thing, you would be successful. You're all over the place. Being all over the place is your method. It is your way. It is okay. And in fact, you're doing it right. And for a lot of you, like if you've got a six in your chart, like if you're a 6-2 or a 3-6, a 6-3, like those things, then know that you're designed to have like failures to share. Like, tell us what you tried, talk about it. You're here to help other people collapse their timelines because they don't have to go. You went first. Left hand. I mean, the left angle crosses. That's why I say they take one for the team. You go first so that you can help others navigate more easily. And so many manifesting generators. Um, also have right angle crosses. So, but I'm just saying that that whole time bending thing, because plop you in the middle of something and flail around, that's the right way for you to do it.
This is where Jenny was instrumental in helping me with my manifesting generator-ness, is the way she explained it, the movie that came into my head, because my primary job, I'm a professional artist, is some people get from A to B with little dots. Some people draw a line. Some people write a squiggle. I draw a star and then come back to it. So that's how I got freedom in being an MG so that I could be an OG. See what I did there?
I love
Mm,
it. I love it. I
that's
love it.
how to win at being a Pisces sun sign. You're going to have to realize that the intuitive state, the imagination state, and probably some of your subconscious retention is the key. If you are going to dial your focus down and just be semi-aware of things, it won't help. You're going to feel overwhelmed in that kind of constriction. So let yourself spill the milk and see what kind of shape and pattern it takes outside of its container before you clean it up. I've always enjoyed a little bit of let's let this off the leash and then decide how we want to discipline or refine it or extract or is I do a lot of brainstorming, I do a lot of info dumping, I do a lot of free association journaling. It's get it all up and out and then pick through it like an estate sale.
That is the
That's
manifesting
Chinese terminology
generator way. Yes.
who are Pisces that are stuck in their shadow end up acting like Virgos. where they're trying to be Mary Poppins. They're trying to be practically perfect in every direction. And you're not built for it. I can't even straighten my hair right. Like, enough.
No.
Your fixation on details is you eclipsing your own sun, your own methodology, your own path, your own playbook. Your arc through life is supposed to be a little bit boundless, a little bit illusion, a little bit, hey, now you see me, now you don't.
A
So
little
that's
bit
my
magic.
advice.
A little
The
bit of
magic, Pisces magic.
I love that. Pisces magic. Yeah. Oh,
You,
so it was so
Tony.
fun.
It
Uh,
was.
we'll
It
be
is.
back again next week with the third person. We're not going to tell you who it is.
Nope. So
Just
you,
stay tuned.
again,
We're very excited about it.
we'll leave you on this note. If you want to have a snack with us, if you want to have a session with us, if you want to have a series, we are available for you and you will find a way to get a hold of us if you'd like to test it out, try a bit, or do some work with us.
Yes, all the details are below. Okay.
See
Bye
ya.
now. Thanks. When I turn this off,